The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Most of our audience is probably at least somewhat aware of conservative commentator and now Fox News host Laura Ingraham. And if you've been paying attention to articles about her lately, you might have stumbled across this very interesting situation where her brother, Curtis Ingraham, is very much at odds with her politics and has increasingly started waging sort of a social media campaign against her, calling her a monster, saying that her emotional heart is dead, telling stories about how she would mock non-white kids when she was younger and in school, and he has increasingly been speaking out against her more and more on social media. I don't find it surprising, Pat, that there are people in her family that don't necessarily agree with her politics. That happens in lots of families. The interesting part is that he's chosen, as a relatively unknown guy, to make such a public campaign about it when he's probably opening himself up to significant harassment and criticism with relatively little upside, because again, he's just some guy on the internet. She's the big Fox News host. I don't know if it's more to make himself feel like he's doing something versus to achieve some kind of real damage against her career, if that makes sense, because it seems unlikely that that would happen.
Yeah, I too wonder what his intentions are. Like, is he trying to raise his own profile, maybe get into the public spotlight himself? That's certainly possible. Or maybe it's just for full disclosure. He thinks his sister is a horrible person who holds racist views, and he wants the public to know about them. It could be either one. Sad to see the family feud go on, I guess.
It could be, well, sad for them, I guess, not necessarily sad that somebody from within Laura Ingraham's family is saying this is horrible stuff. It could also be that he is trying to make it known that not the entire Ingraham family is vile and disgusting like she is. Like, that would be completely respectable in my mind. It's not about trying to have a platform as big as hers. It's not about trying to destroy her career, but it's about, hey, not our entire family is that way. And then that seems like a reasonable effort to be made.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting if he has some actual dirt on her. Like, he alleges that that Laura Ingraham, while she was in college at Dartmouth, used racial slurs against her then roommate. So there's no proof of that, of course, but that would be certainly damaging to her brand. And if he's able to come out with a few other examples of how she is a horrible person, maybe that could take her off the air. There have been efforts to that effect going on when you talk about like the advertiser boycotts after she made comments about David Hogg and his grades. So that seems to be like the direction people are going in now, trying to get voices that they disagree with off of the air, kind of deplatform them. And, you know, there are arguments for and against all that kind of stuff. But needless to say, if she actually is a racist, as he alleges, and holds these horrible views, I don't think she should be on Fox News or any media outlet.
The thing I'm finding sort of not funny, but just kind of dumb, is that she recently did a whole segment about how, as a result of non-white immigrants coming to the United States, and literally put up B-roll of Hispanic immigrants working in agriculture on the screen as she was talking about it. The United States is no longer the United States anymore. That's exactly what you would expect someone to do if, when they were in college, they, spoke jive around their black roommate in order to ridicule her or make her feel uncomfortable and used racial slurs. Like, whether or not that particular story is eventually verified, because it's just going to be one person's word against another, or maybe many people's word against Laura Ingraham's, it's the exact same type of thing that she does on her show. Like, it's the same policy, and that's why it's so funny when people act like this would be shocking. No, it would be obvious that this is the type of stuff she did in college, wouldn't it? Like, there's nothing surprising about it to me.
And I've mentioned this a few times on the show and the bonus show, but she has 3 adopted children from foreign countries. So maybe there's some cognitive dissonance going on there, because she's contributing to the so-called browning of America that apparently she's against. But maybe she makes exceptions for her kids. I don't know what it is.
Are her adopted kids not white? I don't know the specifics of who she's adopted.
1 from Russia and 2 from Latin America. Maybe it's Guatemala.
Interesting. Let's talk about personality tests. Personality tests are really popular. Hiring processes and hiring departments will often use personality tests. People will often use personality tests that they choose to take to figure out sort of the employment direction that they should go in for future career decisions, so on and so forth. But most working psychologists seem to be of the mindset that those personality tests are not particularly useful for really making important decisions, that it's the specific circumstances and the individual that need to make those decisions. But there's a new study which is based on 1.5 million people's data sets when it comes to personality, seems to say that there are some distinct personality types, some basic categories that people fall into, although they may not be as numerous as some personality tests claim. This is being published in the Nature Human Behavior journal. The researchers are from Northwestern University in Illinois, and they say that there are 4 basic personality types: reserved, role models, average, and self-centered. And this is like a very different approach than some of the other personality tests, but it still is sort of getting at some of the same elements that the more complicated, or maybe the personality tests with, INTJ, ESFP, ENTJ, that's the Myers-Briggs personality test, get to, which is how can we categorize people in order to make both predictions and decisions about them based on the data that we collect. Of course, when you only have 4 basic categories, you're less able to sort of fine-tune exactly what it is that you're trying to sort of figure out with that information. But this actually does make a lot more sense to me, because when you get to 16 different personality types or 32 personality types or whatever, unless the tests have so many questions and are designed in a particular way, very few questions will make the difference between one personality type and another on the results. And people may end up extraordinarily misguided or making decisions that are not decisions that you can sort of accurately and precisely make on the basis of those results. Maybe 4 basic categories makes more sense.
It's interesting how many of these categories are perceived as negative, right? Like, you don't want to be self-centered, you don't want to be reserved. Average, okay, I mean, I guess that's in the middle, but it's often seen as kind of an insult, right? It's like mediocre. You don't want to be an average person. The only positive one there is role model. Contrast that to some of the online personality tests that you find, or like the famous Myers-Briggs one that you were referencing there. Those results are often skewed in sort of like a positive light. Like, even if you come across as like introverted, that can be perceived as a good thing for one reason or another. It seems like with this scientific study, they were only able to identify negative ones and just that one positive one, which was role model.
I think you're not wrong in that a lot of these sound negative, but I think those are the connotations that have unfortunately been attached to some of these categories. Like, I don't objectively think that those are all negative things. Like, for example, being reserved is not objectively negative, but the lack of assertiveness can sometimes be perceived negatively in society. So I think that you're completely right, but that's kind of a shame, right? Like, it should be, if these are actually 4 useful and accurate personality types that we can use to divide people, we should maybe rethink whether these are positive or negative things. But more interestingly, what I was thinking was, anytime that you use categories to sort people, you're basically looking for a shortcut, right? And that's even where prejudice comes from, like stereotypes about people on the basis of race or nationality or religion. The sort of goal of that stereotyping is you can't know everybody. You couldn't possibly analyze every individual member of any one of these groups. And so what the stereotyping allows you to do is, when you meet someone that's a member of a particular group, you can use the stereotyping to try to make some kind of general assessment about that individual. And of course, lots of those assessments are a combination of untrue damaging, biased, and discriminatory, and they sort of have a very tangible negative impact on society. But that's the idea, right? You're trying to categorize people as a shortcut to figuring out things about them. If the idea is to figure out what types of work is someone suited for, or how should they be counseled when it comes to one aspect of life or another, that's not objectively a bad thing, but you just have to be really sure that the categories are the right ones when it comes to this, or you are going to, as I think a lot of these aptitude tests have done over time to people, close doors for them that didn't necessarily need to be closed, or make people miss opportunities that could be good ones for them.
Yeah, it makes me think that we're maybe better off not knowing about these personality types, because it does lead to stereotyping. And hey, you may call it the truth, but the truth isn't necessarily what we find most comfortable, or maybe what's good for humanity at all times. So it's kind of unfortunate in that sense.
Let's talk about continued troubles for SpaceX and Tesla CEO Elon Musk. You might remember back when those kids were stuck in a Thai cave, a British diver helped rescue the soccer team that was trapped in the cave in Thailand, and he was referred to as a pedo, short for pedophile, on Twitter by Elon Musk. He's now suing Musk for defamation, and he may actually get money out of this. It's not clear whether he would actually or will actually win the defamation case, but it was such a dumb thing for Musk to do, and given the prominence of Elon Musk and the number of followers that he has and the relative anonymity of this random British diver, one of the elements of libel and defamation cases is not only can the individual show that they were materially damaged? And this is often why very well-known people don't win defamation cases against random people on Twitter, because some random person on Twitter can say almost whatever they want about a famous person, and it's not going to materially affect their lives in any way. This is a very different situation, and it's more reminiscent to me of, I think it was Glenn Beck, who was sued for libel, I believe it was, by someone that he incorrectly suggested was maybe the Boston Marathon bomber. And of course, Glenn Beck in a position of power, this completely almost unknown individual not in a position of power. And it's a very similar situation. And I think that this diver, Pat, could very well come away with a bunch of money from this.
Maybe so. It just seems like Elon Musk's assertion was dumb on its face. Like, he called the diver a pedophile. Why? Because he was interested in saving those kids trapped in a cave? Like, the allegation doesn't seem to make any sense. There was no basis for it. And I think maybe it's so ludicrous that this could end up being thrown out, because I don't think anyone's going to come away with the idea that this diver was a pedophile just because Elon Musk said that.
Yeah, that would be the one argument, which is that it's so ridiculous on its face that it can't be taken seriously. That would be like if I threatened to run you over with a cruise ship, and I'm not a cruise ship captain, and I don't reasonably head, and we live in Kansas City or something like that. Like, yes, I'm threatening to kill you, but it's so patently absurd that I could actually do what I'm threatening to do that it wouldn't be considered a serious threat in any way. That would be the analogy, and the only way I think that you could say that this is obviously dumb. But, you know, a lot of these things, especially with someone as rich as Musk, it may be simpler and quicker for him to just make what to him would be a pretty small payment and to get this out of his way.
Yeah, I think this diver could just be looking for a quick payday. He takes a look at Elon Musk's net worth at $20 billion, and he says, hey, well, you know, if I sue for $75,000, maybe I can make a quick $50,000 off of this. I think a lot of people would do that.
That is it for me, and that is it for me from Paris. Travel day tomorrow, and if all goes well, and let's hope that it does, we've got some remnants of the hurricane that will be causing some rain in the northeast of the United States. So hopefully I'm back on time, and I'll be joining you from the studio later this week.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.